Alright, Ryan in Idaho. This is your new Stryker here, 955. And I have the conversion done for you there. So there you go. I had to clean the board a little bit still, but I just used the wire from the QT60 or Quad 5N2. Works out well. It's almost like it was made for this, which kind of it was. On those radios, that wire would be on the top in a different configuration with the jumper pin, but in this configuration you just add the wire. So she's on there nice, ain't going nowhere. Pretty much refine a little bit here and there. It ain't gonna fracture or anything like that, so you'll be good to go. That can just stay just like that, out of sight out of mind kind of thing. I'm gonna clean the board off just a little bit more with some contact cleaner, circuit board cleaner. I use this stuff here. I use some alcohol too to clean off the flux, but this works pretty good. It's quick drying. Here's the flux that I use. Everybody's maybe particular. This is what I have currently, but this lasts quite a long time, but works pretty good. Just a little bit of that on the board helps the soldering transition happen pretty darn easy, so all good there. And yeah, so that part is done. I'm going to clean that off a little bit more, put the screws back in, and put the top cover back on. And if I remember correctly now, these, there used to be a procedure, I think you have to hold a button or something, but I think now they just come on and you just go right to the band that you want to use, and I think it unlocks the 12 meter also, and everything is there now. So we'll find that out in a minute. Alright, so let's power it on and see what happens. Okay, let's go to the band. Maybe we still have to do the button combination, I'm not sure. No, we don't have to. So they just come on now, and you don't have to do that anymore. So yeah, I kind of thought that was the case, but I couldn't remember. No, my personal preference is not to use the band option and use the VFO option, but that's entirely my preference because I can work my way around pretty well in the VFO. I'm not going to do that for you. I'm going to leave it in the band setting. You can experiment with that later if you want to, but here's all your bands. The 12 meter has to be accessed from the VFO, so that is one option you need to access from the VFO mode. The band option doesn't give you that. You can do PC programming and probably put it in there if you want to. It does come with the cable, I believe. The Stryker does include the cable, so you can hook this up to the computer and you get the software from Stryker's website and do whatever you decide you want to do to it to program the bands if that's what you want to do. But you don't have to. You can use the VFO mode. Now it's a little counterproductive right now because we don't have much of a adjustment, but obviously if you want to change things, you go into function and go to channel selector right here, and now we can make that these are kilohertz. You can go 1 megahertz, which will get you very far now. So let's get out of that just by doing that. Now we can go down into the 24 meg band. So obviously this would be no man's land right here. You'd want to be up on the amateur portion to use the band. Again, I feel like they should represent these with a dual band amateur mobile transceiver. 10 and 12, I think it would do them more justice to market it as a 10 and 12, although for whatever reason they only market it as a 10, but it does very well cover 12 as well. So we're quite a bit under the band planned for 12 right now, but you can do that really quick too. You can just put it in 12 by, again, just using the function. So this would be for our course, which is this one. Now we can kind of adjust that up to 10K. So now I'm trying to do this. You can see if I do this, how we're moving up the band rather quickly. Now once you're like in the band, which we are now, we can, if you wanted to maneuver around the band a little bit, you know, in smaller steps. Whoop, we kind of lost our train of thought there for a minute. So you can do this. I'm right-handed, so I always default to my right hand. So you can go 100 hertz, 1 kilohertz. Probably 1 kilohertz is good there. And then you could go 5 kilohertz here. And what that does now is give us the ability to jump 5 or go in between with 1 kind of thing. Now if someone's working a weird offset, like if they're working over here, then you can also go 100 hertz, and now you can work the weird offset or whatever. So it does give you some options to do whatever you want to do in the VFO mode. So I like the VFO mode personally better, but that doesn't mean that you have to ever use it there. Once you switch out of VFO and go into band, all this stuff is, well, actually it stays the same. So of course the channel selector becomes just a channel selector now. It should just go up, you know, the standard, what we would call our CB channel jump, you know, 10 kilohertz. So, you know, now we have our standard CB band. So hopefully that makes sense to you. It's kind of boring, I know, for those that would never use this in amateur radio, but it is definitely dual purpose. So before I do anything else to the radio, I want to talk about antennas, because you were asking me a lot of questions about antennas. So first and foremost, like a standard like CB antenna will work fine on this band, although I should, you know, point out that technically this radio does way too much power for CB band. It's not type accepted, the whole 9 yards. We all kind of know, but do what you must, I guess. You know, use the radio for whatever you find that you need it for. I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do or anyone else. But having said that, if you want to use the amateur bands, you're going to need a different antenna. Obviously, if you go down into 12, you're going to need a longer antenna. If you go up on 10, by doing the VFO jump, we can get there rather quick again. We'll go up to 10. This is a very, very high part of 10, but you know, we're still on 10. You need a general class for this frequency, of course, but you know, being that we're on a higher frequency, our antenna length would physically be shorter. So the antenna that I recommend for you, given the circumstance that you never really know where you could or couldn't be kind of thing, would be one made by Yaesu, and it's called the ATAS 100A. I believe that's what it's called. I have one, but I should know that, but I think it's called the ATAS 100A. It's a screwdriver powered antenna, and what I mean by that is you have a controller. Now they work hand in hand with Yaesu like transceivers, but you can buy a controller from MFJ. Let me look up the model number so I tell you the right one. Okay, here's the antenna, ATAS 120A. Sorry, I said 100A, I meant 120A. So it's active tuning system antenna, which means that you can tune to resonance on any frequency on this radio, which would be between whatever it is, 24 to 30 megahertz, somewhere in between. Standard UHF connector on the bottom kind of thing. So this is the frequency range the antenna works from. It only allows up to 120 watts, so keep that in mind, that if you wanted extra power, that is the limitation. 120 watts mobile is quite a bit of power for someone just wanting to do general talking, whatever the case is. You're going to make a lot of contacts on ham radio if you get licensed and use this antenna on ham radio as well. With 60 to 100 watts is perfectly acceptable for this antenna. So let me find the screwdriver MFJ controller, because obviously our Stryker here doesn't have that built into control, and basically what happens with this antenna is it raises and lowers based on the frequency that you want to use. So it becomes longer for, like, say, the 12 meter, and it will become shorter for the 10 meter, and it's motorized. Alright, so I'm just going to show you a video The model number here is MFJ1925. Now you have to get the right one because some of them are made for ICOM radios. There's also one that's not, and it's made for all different types. So this is the one that he's showing, all different types. He's using the ATAS 128 portable, but we'd be more concerned with using it on a vehicle. There's your controller. You have an up and down. Here's the antenna. He has a counterpoise, so he's using that for his ground. Obviously this is more amateur radio related, but you can see what this controller does. So he's essentially adjusting the antenna length to the proper frequency. So the MFJ 1925 will work with all transceivers, all radios, to control that antenna. So it's something I definitely would recommend anyone get if you're wanting to do multiple bands out of a mobile without switching antennas. But keep in mind there's a power limitation, so you can see his SWR is dropping. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it is going to drop, and he's going to find a resonance point where that antenna will work the best for that frequency. He's on 10 megahertz. Yeah, so he's good. So it definitely worked for what he wanted to use it for, and now he's working, I think that's the 30-meter band. So with that ATAS 128, this is a good mount for it. Now I don't sell the antenna, the ATAS 128, I don't sell the MFJ 1925, I don't sell this, so these are products you'd have to get elsewhere, but I just recommend them because I think they're good products. Now this mounted actually is going to go on my vehicle. The ATAS 128 would mount here, it would slip through here. This is like a trunk, heavy-duty trunk, hatchback mount. It's adjustable. You can use it on many different types of vehicles. It's a very rugged and durable mount. Now I have a cheap, it's actually an NMO mount, very small. It's on my trunk lid of my car, and I put an adapter on there to adapt the NMO to this UHF style connector, so the ATAS 128 screwed right on. It's very flimsy, kind of, you know, it does supply enough ground and everything for the antenna to work, but when I upgrade to this, it's going to work much better, I think, on the car. Now my Yaesu has a built-in controller, so I don't have to have that MFJ 1925, but for like this radio you would. And simply what you would do is probably go to like FM mode or something, and what you would want to do is lower the power down to a much lower level, and then you would key your transmitter, your microphone, and you would watch your SWR meter, and you would adjust that controller, that MFJ 1925, by either going up or down. And when you start to see that the SWR is dropping, you keep going until you get it as low as you possibly can, and then you're good to go. So that's an easy way to work multiple bands on one antenna, barring that you're okay with running 120 watts PP or less, which I am personally in the vehicle. If I can't make it to someone with that, then so be it. Just a personal example, I talked to my friend 767 CB. Check out his YouTube channel. I talked to him on the way home from some family, visiting some family over the weekend with my ATAS 128 on that trunk mount that I have that isn't very good like this one would be. And he, I talked to him all the way out in California from my mobile in Michigan with just the radio's power. My Yaesu is like 80 to probably 100 watts PP, so not a big power station or anything, but I was able to do it during the daytime, working the band conditions. So it's all about conditions. The power isn't as much of a factor as many people would think it is. So definitely recommend that antenna for multiple band operation. So enough about that. 15 minutes here. Everybody's not going to get a video, unfortunately. It's just there's too much work to do and not enough time. So my job is really busy this time of year in the summer. I have a lot of outdoor activities and stuff like that, maintenance of the yard here at home, and just everything in general. So the videos are going to get less and less. There will be some videos, at least one video or so a week, just to keep the channel active and going. I got a lot of stuff I'd like to do and show, just not enough time. So we covered that. We covered the antenna, a good mount option for the antenna. Now it does come with cable. You have 13.5 feet. If you would need more cable, then you would have to add an adapter in or something. But I think this is a good choice. Now again, all these products cost a good bit of money, but you know, when you want to do things, you want to do it the right way. Sometimes you have to spend some money. So money is always a factor. Not everyone has that ability to do that, and I understand that. And there are other ways to go. Like I said before, switching out antennas for other frequencies. You know, a resonant antenna for, say, 12 meter. You could have your monoband 12 meter antenna. You could have a monoband 10 meter antenna. Same for CB. You could have 3 different antennas if that's the route you wanted to go to. It's just, I like having the one option. That way you never really have to stop. One other thing to talk about with the ATAS 120 or A, it's recommended not to adjust the antenna while you're driving. With that being said, I was able to do it ever so slightly going down the expressway at like 70-75 miles an hour. We're talking about switching from like the lower part of 10 to like the FM part of 10. Not a big change, so the motorized section of the antenna didn't really have to do much. Now if we were talking about going down to like 40 meter from 10 meter, obviously you would probably break the antenna, because that's a lot of movement and the antenna is physically getting a lot longer. So it's not recommended to adjust it while you're driving, but you know, that's up to each individual. If you choose to do that, just keep in mind that you could damage the motorized, you know, functionality of that antenna. Here's another good video that shows that ATAS 120A with that MFJ 1925. You guys can reference this if you want to watch the video. It's a good video to let you know what it's capable of doing. So if you were to buy an MFJ 1925, just make sure you call the dealer source that you get it from and just specify to them that you don't have like an ICOM transceiver, something you want to use it with just a standard transceiver or whatever the case is. That way it just has a standard hot and ground power lead. Otherwise the other model will plug into some of these ICOM transceivers. Probably it plugs into the back of this and it gets its power from the radio. So you want to make sure you get one that doesn't do that, that just you can supply your own power and ground source. Also, one more thing to touch on: if you're going to get that antenna, you're going to need to go into the PC programming software and set the SWR protection of the radio to a higher level. That way you can take advantage of the tuning option of the antenna, because how I usually send these out, if the radio detects an SWR of like 3 to 1 or higher, it will cut the transmit out, and that's not going to allow you to tune that antenna. I mean, technically you could, I think, because you're doing it manually with the up and down, but it's going to be a lot easier if you're sending RF through the antenna. That way your SWR meter on the radio will show something while you're adjusting the antenna. So that's something that you'll have to do if you decide to go that route. I am going to send this out with the 3 to 1 enabled, because that's just something I always do for protection of the radio. That's why I recommend, if you're going to do that, keep this RF power at a minimum. And you know, 1 watt or so, a couple watts is really all you're going to need to adjust that antenna to whatever frequency you want to use this radio with. So if you don't even decide to do that, then all this was a waste of about 20 minutes. So you know, I just present options. Everybody has their own choice on what they want to do later. Alright, right now I'm just sending the PC programming back into the radio. That's why it says PC. So that'll take a few seconds and get done. The color of the radio will change to orange. Now if you don't like the orange, you can use the color button there and select any color you wish. So that'll be something you have the choice of. I did put a custom Roger beep in. It's nothing really fancy or anything. It's just a slight little beep like the old HR2510. If you're new to radio, then you wouldn't really know what that is, but most everyone else that's been in the hobby for a long time would. It's just a nice subtle little Roger beep. I think it comes on like function 6. Okay, here's the orange. I know it kind of looks yellow in the screen or in the camera, but it is orange. So now we're just gonna show a couple things. Nothing's been done in the alignment process yet, but I just wanted to show something just to show how this radio looks out of the factory on sideband. Okay, so this is why I align the radio. So this is the RF power is all the way up, and this is, you know, too much power. The radio is in distortion. You can actually hear the output MOSFETs that the radio uses for its power amplifier section. You can hear the distortion in them. You can hear them oscillating. So that's why you have a really nasty two-tone signal there. And then up here on the spectrum analyzer, we have all types of intermodulation distortion product. So I'm going to run the test, and we're going to see what it looks like before I align it. Okay, here's our test. So we're still doing the same power. Still looks really bad there. We're going to use the mouse so it can we have a timeout timer effect. So sorry about that. The radio killed itself. So these are our numbers here. It's about 11, so that's not good at all. It's really poor. We would add 6 here, and it's about 17, so that's really bad. And you know, obviously you can see, but if I lower the RF power, and this is why I'm telling you guys, power is not always the best thing. So look at that. Look how it starts to come up. Now that's without me aligning the radio, but you can see how much better that signal gets. Less intermodulation distortion. And now you can see down here we have a nice respectable two-tone signal. You know, obviously it's well within what we should want to see. So by looking at these things, it's telling us that the radio is essentially doing way too much power, and it's in oscillation, just horrible. So yes, you can talk on it like that, you will sound good. That's not the point of what I'm trying to say here. It's not that the radio wouldn't sound good like this. The radio still sounds good. It's just all these other products that you're producing with the signal that other people's receivers are going to pick up as interference. And then if you run an amplifier behind this, you know, run for the hills, because this is very dirty here. And if you amplify that, it's just going to get 100 times worse, whatever you're running. So, and most of these amplifiers for the CB style market will already have a bad example here with that. So that's why they don't cost that much, and that's why you're getting a high level of power for like an affordable price, you know. Hence the reason why they're so cheap. Not saying they're not built with some quality. Some of these guys do a really good job building these amps, but there's a lot of key components I think that are missing. Now, I'm not going to run people in the ground or do any of that. That's not what I do, but all I'm going to say is there's a level of quality when you step up to like a HF style amp that you're never going to get with like a CB style amp. That's all I'm going to say, and we'll just leave that there. Okay, so now I'm going to align the sideband on this radio. So this is our horrible full power option that the radio has out of the factory. So we're going to adjust it down and make this look very respectable. So that's looking much better there. Now our power essentially like dropped quite a bit, but we don't care about power. We shouldn't care about power because the power isn't doing us any justice really. The power now will be much better, and I'll demonstrate that here in a minute up there on the spectrum analyzer with that same test. I just want to make sure I have my basis correct before I show that. So when you readjust things, you have to reconfigure the test. But this looks much better. I mean, we could actually go just a little bit better than that. But you can see the crossover here where it changes color every so often. That is showing a nice ratio from top to bottom. So everything's looking really good. Now again, our power is sitting somewhere now about 27, whereas before it was at like 51. So you know, it's very important that those understand the differences of what this does to the signal, that the power is now not being wasted, and you're not going to send out as much garbage that other receivers pick up. Of course, the modulation still sounds good with that higher power, and that's why most think what this is a waste of time and effort and everything else. And why did you cut the power? Because now you're taking away, but in reality all you're taking away is the interfering part of the signal. The actual quality part of the signal still stays there. So that's the important part to take from this. Alright, so here's the last part of our sideband test here. So now you can see we're full power. Now we're only showing about 20 or so, which is just, you know, this is never going to read accurate. When I speak into the mic it will do more power, but just for the two-tone purpose this is where we're at. So here's our waveform now. Still looks really round. Everything's looking good. And now when we look up here, let me get my pointer right in this area. So now we're at about a 19, which is a big improvement. And when we had the 6, now we're at about 25, which is way more respectable than where we were when we started. So this is very important for non-interference of other signals that are close by. So especially in amateur radio, when people are working very close to where you're working, you don't want to interfere. Now this radio, obviously we have a design characteristic with the MOSFETs that are being used, so there's certain things that you just can't change, but I've made it the best that I possibly can, and that's all I can do. There are better radios out there that cost a lot more money for better signal purity. We're never going to say this is a perfect, absolute, there's nothing better designed, because that's ideally not true, but it is a very good radio. So what I want to do really quick is just jump off this radio for a second. I'm going to hook up a Radio Oddity QT60. We're going to run the same test so that I can show you guys a comparison between the two. So remember, this one is about 19, so we'll figure when we add the 6 it's going to be about 25, and we'll see what the Radio Oddity comes out at. I believe that it's not as good. Alright, so here's a QT60. So you can see our meter showing about the same. Our power is about 20 something, and here's our two-tone. Looks really nice. So I have the color option on this, so something a little bit different. I don't know how it's coming across on the camera. So let me make sure the test is lined up right, and I'll come right back and show that. And then we'll jump back on the Stryker and finish that up. Okay, so the QT60 came out to be just about the same. I figured it was going to be close. I figured maybe the Stryker was just a little bit better. It just depends on where you set the threshold in the service mode. If you set it too high, then obviously that test comes out with a lesser quality signal. So I did actually back this down a little bit to get better signal quality out of the radio. So again, we're looking at this number here, and we're seeing about the same. So that's a good sign that, you know, these radios are pretty consistent on the power amplifier section, that they are pretty much what they are. You know, if you adjust them right, you get a nice clean signal out of it, as clean as you can anyways. Obviously if you lower the power, by lowering the RF power down more, you actually get a cleaner signal out. You see how that number is increasing, and you can see that here. I mean, that looks even better. So again, always running more power isn't always the option if you want the cleanest signal. Now again, like I said, there are other radios on the HF market that are much better, and amplifiers that cost a lot of money but are well worth it, because they don't take away from this on the signal. You know, your amplifier shouldn't change anything when you put it in line. And a lot of the ones that, like I said before in the earlier part of the video, they do things that are undesirable. So let's just put a mic on this and kind of see what it's doing for peak power. And a lot of guys will probably laugh at it because it's not going to do anywhere near the 60 or anything, but that's not important. What I think is important is what we have here now, because this radio would have started out at a really bad, like a 10 or 11 also. Like right now we're at like the 25 when we had the 6. Before we would have been like a 16, 17. So we're well above that. So let's put a mic on this really quick and just take a look. Okay, well, it's not too bad on the power. So 1 2 3 1 2 3. Obviously on the power meter here you're not going to see much, so that's not the issue. You know, some might think there's something wrong with the radio here because we're in LSB, our RF power is all the way up, but you're not seeing much there, and that's to be expected because this is not an accurate power scale at all on this radio, nor is it on the Stryker. So here's our peak power. So just speaking into the mic here, we're still doing well. It's about 50 watts, 55 watts, so that's good. So sometimes a little higher. So we didn't take really much away from the power, but at least what we're seeing now is a better understanding that the power that the radio's producing doesn't have all that other byproduct garbage that interferes. So it's as good as it can be now, and that's all you can really want out of a radio. So let me hook the Stryker back up. I'm going to finish that. This has been a way longer video than I wanted to make because I have a lot more work to do. Alright, here's the Stryker again. So we're just going to talk into the mic again, and we're seeing, you know, it's not showing very much there again. That's okay. Up here on our power meter, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Check. About the same, you know, as the other one. Maybe just a few extra watts. So if you like watts, you probably would like this better, but it really doesn't matter to me a whole lot. But yeah, so it's doing well for what it is, you know. So I'm going to finish up. I'm not going to show a lot of this stuff because I've shown it 100 times before. I'll come back and kind of give the end of the video, kind of a couple quick things, and then that's going to be it for your Ryan. Sorry with all the technical stuff. I know there's some that really like it and appreciate it, and I know there's some that probably, as soon as I started talking about that ATAS 120A and stuff, they stopped watching, and that's fine too. If you're not enjoying the content, then, you know, there's others out there that, you know, for whatever reason, you might just like to watch people yell audio into a mic and show a bird power meter and all that, and that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, everybody has an interest in radio, and whatever that is for you is what you guys like, and whatever I like is what I like. So that's what makes the world go around. We all have different likes and interests. So we'll finish this one up, and I'll be back. One thing I wanted to show on these is the deviation on these out of the box is much better than like a Quad 5N2 or a QT60. This is almost at 4 kilohertz already, so I'll make the quick adjustment to it, but you can see where that mouse pointer is. It's like 3.6, so we're gonna fix that up to about 4 for you, which will give you a good FM modulated sound, slightly over 4, just for a little bit of, we'll give you about 4.1 just in case when it radio cools or heats, you know, it stays up right about that 4 level. Okay, so I got the transmit alignment all done. Just keep in mind now when you're on AM mode, the power meter on the radio is going to read extremely too high, so that's another thing with these. And same thing on the Radio Oddity or the Anytone model that I showed earlier. When you speak, you're going to see way more power than you're actually doing. So it's too low on sideband, it's too high on AM. Can that be changed? I don't know. I don't mess with the RSSI. I think possibly that's what that setting's for. But just use this scale more as like a modulation meter now for AM. Kind of when you see that you're going over to the max setting, use that as like a indication that you're putting out modulation. That's what I kind of wish it would switch to when you talk. I wish it had like auto circuit in there when you speak. It would switch to like say mod, and maybe just power for carrier, because the carrier power is pretty much spot on. We set this for 8 watts. I set it for 8 watts, and it's right where it should be. So, you know, that's just what it is there. So here's your 8 watts or so right there. And then when I speak into the mic, 1 2 3 1 2 3, so about 58 is what it's going to do. Okay, with it all the way down, RF power. And I don't really recommend running it like this unless you're like right on top of somebody really close or something, you know, but you're at about a 1 watt range. And then when we speak into the mic, you know, there's a high level of modulation still with these radios, and you can see how it really pushes up. So that's not generally desired for most, but I guess those that like to run those kind of amps and stuff, that they can really push that in there, I guess. I don't know. So we're going to bump this up a little bit. So there's about 2 3/4 watt right there. So a little bit more carrier, still kind of the same result. So it definitely has a lot of push power, a lot of peak power, a lot of modulation. These are kind of modulation happy more than the Anytone or the Radio Audi, which they should be. This was designed kind of for the American market, and that's why they do a little bit more. Does it make a big difference? I don't know. You guys be the judge of that, but I do see a little bit more out of these. So the only thing left I'm going to do is align the S meter so it's a little more accurate, and that's pretty much it. I'll check the receiver. I've never found one of these that didn't have a good receiver, so you know that's besides the point, but I still check it. There's a lot of other options in the menu that you can play with, like the noise reduction circuit, which is kind of useful, especially if you're on FM. One thing with FM, you have a power range. With this all the way up, it's going to be 50. With this all the way down, it's going to be 1. I wouldn't recommend running it all the way up for an extended period of time. I'd recommend lowering it. So, you know, that's up to you, but I would definitely recommend running it lower, just out of safety. It will heat up pretty fast. There's no fans or any ventilation other than the vents on the case. So that heat sink's made to get hot though. Let's show you the noise reduction. Right here. Does cut that background noise out quite a bit. It's non-adjustable. It's either on or off. You can use that in all modes if you like how it sounds. If you don't, you can switch it off. So, but once it defaults back, you have to cycle all the way back through to get it. It would be nice if somehow they would have added in like a option on the front to this for the noise reduction. Maybe got rid of some of this NB plus and kind of made that all in one and put NR right there or something. I think that would have been a little more useful, but who knows what the future will hold with these guys. They haven't released a new model in quite some time, so assuming eventually soon there will be maybe a new model by Stryker, which would be cool. Hopefully it's a SSB all mode model, but I have no insider info or anything on that. So that's pretty much it, Ryan. Kind of a long video, like I said, but I wanted to talk about the antenna because that seemed to be your main concern. So hopefully if you decide to get the ATAS 120A and get that controller, everything will work out well for you. Basically, you would just run a coaxial cable jumper out the back of the radio to the input of that controller and then connect the antenna to the output of the controller, and then everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. Just run the power way down on FM mode or something when you adjust the length of the antenna. So I hope that works out well for you. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll get this one ready to ship your way soon. Thanks a lot. 7-3.